What's going on YouTube? It's TH, back again with another video, and today we are beginning the first part of a two-part series that'll go up on the channel this week, talking about the top 5 players at each position group in the NFL. Today we're talking offense. Later on this week, like I said, we'll talk about the defensive side of the ball. So we're talking QBs, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends, so on and so forth, and I'm giving you the top 5 that I have at each of those position groups, but I want to see your list down below in the comments section. Who's the best quarterback? Who's, RB5? Who's wide receiver 3? All that sort of fun stuff. Let me hear it down below in the comments section, because trust me, my list is not going to be the same list that you have, so let me see yours down below. Hopefully you guys enjoy. Hit the like button if you do. Seriously, it helps out the channel, gets this video some more exposure, and of course, if you're new to the channel, want to see more football content, as we have reached we're in August, so it's football season now, so subscribe to the channel if you want more football content in your life. But let's waste no more time and jump into it and talk quarterbacks. We'll be pretty quick here because I already have a quarterbacks tier ranking video up on the channel from this offseason, and I plan on doing a top 1 through 32 ranking of all 32 week 1 starters. So we'll do that once we get to the dawn of week 1 of the NFL season. Patrick Mahomes, don't need to, if you're clicking on this video, don't need to tell you why Patrick Mahomes is QB1. To me, he's the most talented guy to ever play the position. Don't know if he'll have the resume that Brady has, and has rightfully earned Brady the title of GOAT. And I'm not gonna steal the BOAT argument from Max Kellerman, because as smart as he might have thought that was at the time, it kind of fell flat and didn't go over all that well. So, but yeah, I think Mahomes is the most talented guy to play the position, and I think that's just kind of a natural process. In 20 years' time, there'll be a guy who's even better than Mahomes probably. So, yeah, I mean, a freak inside the pocket, strong arm, great at being able to make plays off script. You name it, Patrick Mahomes can do it. Then I got Joe Burrow just ahead of Josh Allen. These guys really could be 2A, 2B. Right now, I just trust Burrow to be able to take care of the football a little bit more and come up in big spots and clutch situations. Not that Allen's unclutch, but we've just seen the turnovers kind of come at costly opportunities there for Allen and the Bills. The counter argument could be, hey, Allen, he's taking a lot of hits, but he stays on the field. Burrow, obviously, with the calf injury now, question marks if he's even be available week 1. Obviously, already missed a significant portion of his rookie season. So, I feel better about Burrow being able to, limit turnovers, better decision making, maybe. But when it comes to the injury standpoint, maybe that's enough to have you flip Allen over Burrow. But they're both studs and easily warranted that top 3 conversation. Then we get to Herbert and then Hurts. Herbert, I don't think will have any pushback really. The guy has the talent. I don't think anybody looks at Justin Herbert and says, he's not good. Now it just comes down to, can we get that extra little bit out of him, especially pushing the ball down the field? Can we get those field-flipping throws? Even if it results in a few more turnovers, can we create those 50, 60, 70-plus yard plays and get some big touchdowns out of it and create some huge momentum there? Because it feels like that's the one spot of his game that we haven't really seen, which is crazy to say because he might have the strongest arm of anybody in the league. Him and Allen probably 1 and 2, and of course Mahomes in there in the conversation as well. So we just want to see that last little bit, and then if we see him kind of flip that switch and become more aggressive this year, there's an argument to say that, hey, it's Mahomes, and then instead of it just being Burrow and Allen and that right there just off of Mahomes' shoulder, maybe we got to put Herbert in that conversation as well. Then I got Jalen Hurts here at 5. I mean, I know there's people who still have Rodgers here. You can make the argument that maybe Lamar deserves it. A lot of guys who could have been here at the number 5 spot, but to me, I've always been a pretty big believer in Jalen Hurts. Every step in his playing career, we've just seen him make progress, from Alabama to Oklahoma to year 1 in the league to year 2, and then of course last year, year 3. Got the huge payday, and I think he rightfully deserved it. And every spot where we've seen him make progress, he's proven it's not a fluke. So I don't see last year as a fluke either. I think he's taking huge steps in the right direction as a passer. Does help having maybe the best offensive line in the game in front of him, having 2 stud wide receivers in A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith, yeah, sure, and plus good offensive line in Nick Sirianni, and of course last year with the offensive coordinator in Philadelphia being Shane Steichen, who now is an NFL head coach, so clearly he must have been onto something as well. So yeah, he's had a good environment around him, but I think he's legitimately taken strides in the right direction as a passer, get the dual threat mobility in there. I think he's worthy of being in that top 5 conversation. Then we get to running backs, and also I put CMC here just because Christian McCaffrey's too long, wanted to keep the letter face, kind of similar font size, all that sort of stuff. So just a little bit of behind the scenes, peek behind the curtain. I was really close to putting Chubb at 1 because to me Chubb is the best pure runner in the game, but it's a passing league. So I have to take into account what Christian McCaffrey can do as a receiver. Can legitimately play some snaps in the slot and takes a lot of pressure off of the shoulders of an offense that Brock Purdy, we're going to see how legit he is, and if he's not legit, then it's Sam Darnold and Trey Lance. And the reason nobody's really worried about the 49ers still winning that division, there's a pathway they don't, but because of Kyle Shanahan and because of those weapons, a big part of that being CMC, we're not too concerned about what those quarterbacks will look like. And yeah, just that dual threat capability in today's day and age. I mean, I think that's where the running back position's gonna, in 20 years' time. I mean, I'm not gonna say everybody's gonna be as good as Christian McCaffrey, but there aren't gonna be just your pure running backs anymore. You're gonna have to do a little bit of both, which then makes Nick Chubb a really interesting case study because he may end up being one of the last few that we see that doesn't have awesome receiving upside. I mean, even look at the other guys behind him. I think Barkley's a better receiver. I think Jonathan Taylor does a little bit more in the pass game, and Josh Jacobs as well. That was something I liked about Jacobs coming out of Alabama a lot. So he may end up being like one of the last pure, true running backs and not much else. Him and like Derrick Henry, and there's a few others in the league, of course. But man, Chubb, the contact balance, the vision, the ability to fit into zone or gap blocking schemes. He can win with power, he can win with elusiveness. You name it. When it comes to him being a runner, he can do it. And again, I think he's the best pure runner in the league. He just doesn't have the receiving upside that CMC does. Saquon Barkley, I mean, easily, any given year could have the number one, status of being the best running back in the league that year. Talent is undeniable. And there's a reason why he ended up going number 2 overall. Was that the right decision for the Giants to make? That's another conversation for another day. But it's not often that running backs warrant the conversation. And Saquon Barkley is just that talented. Another guy that you want to run outside stretch? Well, he's got the home run speed that if he turns the corner, he's taking it all the way. He's got the jump cut to go make DBs look silly. He's got enough power in his game to be able to work through linebackers and take big hits from safeties, all that stuff. I mean, plus he's a good receiving threat out of the backfield. Maybe not CMC level, but he's still a plus receiver at that position. So yeah, Saquon, one of the best in the game. And it really kind of comes into the issue because I'm going to say a lot of the same stuff about Jonathan Taylor and Josh Jacobs because they're both studs in their own right. The running back market right now, not to get into the conversation of how much these guys should be making, because I think that should be saved for another video if I decide to do it. It's a saturated position right now. I mean, an overly saturated position. There's a lot of really, really good backs, and there's plenty of guys I wish I could have snuck on those lists. I'm a huge Aaron Jones guy. And, I just didn't see a spot where I can move Aaron Jones over one of these 5 guys. So, I mean, there's a lot of really good backs here. So, let me know who I left off this list that you think I'm crazy for not including in the top 5. But Jonathan Taylor, if it's not Nick Chubb as the best pure runner in the game, it's probably Jonathan Taylor. Taylor probably does a little bit more in the pass game. But to me, I do think Chubb's a little bit more. It's just slightly better as a pure runner. But Taylor, another guy that gap scheme, zone running scheme, he could fit into it. And we saw 2 years ago getting MVP consideration just because of how much he was carrying that Colts offense. Obviously, there's only so much he could do last year with, Indy's O-line having a little bit of a down year, quarterback, rotating carousel of who's starting in a given week. So situation around him was a little rough. But as long as he's healthy, man, he's one of the game's best, no doubt. And then Josh Jacobs coming off a huge breakout year. So he's been a guy that, maybe we've been kind of waiting to get into this conversation. Like, when will Josh Jacobs warrant that top 5 running back conversation and hype? And last year was the breakout year. Not only, with what he did as a runner and, take over, big play games or big play moments in big games like the Seattle touchdown they have that was one of the best plays of that given week. So kind of had that huge breakout year where we got to see those big runs and whatnot, but also as a receiver. And I especially think in that Josh McDaniels offense, we're going to see even more of that this upcoming season. I think Jimmy Garoppolo will lean into that a lot too. So assuming he's healthy, of course. But yeah, great running between the tackles. That's probably where he's best, honestly, versus, getting out wide like a Barkley or a Taylor probably can do a little bit better. But yeah, Jacobs between the tackles plus his receiving ability had the breakout season. If he doubles down on it, then yeah, it's going to be hard for me to have a case where he's not in the top 5 next year. Otherwise, if he takes a step back, maybe we can get an Aaron Jones in here, or maybe it's Bijan Robinson. I didn't want to put any of the rookies in here, but Bijan easily could work his way into that top 5 conversation even after year 1. Let's get on to wide receivers. This was a tough one. And I feel like my top 5 here is pretty chalk, which is disappointing. I kind of want to start bottom up here. Stephon Diggs is someone I've been saying is a top 5 wide receiver for a few years now. Then he went to Buffalo, and I think we all kind of saw, yep, okay, give this guy the number 1 role. And just give him the workload. And yeah, no doubt, like one of the sharpest route runners in the game, really solid hands, can work himself open deep down the field, but also can just be an absolute dynamite threat in the intermediate parts, working between the hashes. I mean, you name it, he's done it for Buffalo. And, that's kind of my issue with the Bills right now. It's Stephon Diggs, and then I'm kind of looking for who else might step up and take that pressure off his shoulders. He's great, but in this day and age, you need 2 number 1s. So, yeah, Diggs, I think, has totally lived up to the billing. Now just got to, no pun intended there with the billing, but now I just got to see the Bills come up with someone else to take that pressure off his shoulders. But undeniable that Diggs is one of the best in the game. Ja'Marr Chase, I mean, this guy is freaky athletic. I mean, it is ridiculous how good he is in the air, straight line speed, the ability to start and stop on a dime. And I remember his rookie year, the concerns about the drops of the preseason. Clearly, that hasn't been a huge issue. And yeah, he definitely has the advantage of great chemistry with Joe Burrow, an offense that has basically turned the keys to Joe Burrow. He has T. Higgins on the other side, taking a little bit of pressure off his shoulders. Tyler Boyd working out of the slot. So yeah, he's got a good environment, but I think wherever you put Ja'Marr Chase, he's going to have a ton of success. And he easily, especially when Tyreek Hill maybe starts to lose a step, Devontae Adams getting up there in age as well. In 2 years' time, maybe 3 years' time, we could be having the conversation of who's better, Ja'Marr Chase and Ja'Marr Chase and Justin Jefferson. And that's gonna be a really exciting time to be an NFL fan because there's really no wrong answer. Both any NFL team would be excited to have them as wide receiver 1. I got Tyreek here at 3 just because the speed's undeniable. You could have flipped, Hill and Chase because maybe Chase you do a little bit more with them. But Tyreek Hill, his speed, any given week, can just ruin the game plan for an opposing defense and ultimately win a game for Miami. So had to put him on here. And, I mean, it's not just the straight line speed. He's also pretty good in the air. And a lot better than maybe you would think for someone his size. Really tenacious about going up and winning the football and contested catch spots. And also get the ball in his hands on a bubble screen or something underneath. And he is no easy, jackrabbit to break down. So, yeah, obviously one of the game's best. And then Devontae Adams, I really thought about having DA still at 1. Even last week, I think I had a video on the channel where I was like, I think Devontae's still number 1. And, maybe I'll wake up tomorrow and be like, should have had Adams at 1, Jefferson at 2. But ultimately, you can't go wrong with either one of these guys. I do think if you consider DA the best in the game, this is probably the last year you'll have that argument. But, dude, his release is still the best in the league. And his route running is just insane. And the fact that he's not like this top end, freak athlete like a Ja'Marr Chase, but he still generates these big plays. Like I think about the Jags game, had like almost 200 yards in the first half, just putting up ridiculous video game numbers, and it's just because he makes DBs look dumb left, right, and center. And that on top of his release, I mean, you cannot press this guy, and that's what made him so good in Green Bay. That's what makes him so good in the red zone too, because you can't get your hands on him, and then he's able to separate in the blink of an eye, and boom, there 6 for Green Bay. In this case 6 for Oakland, or Vegas, I should say. So yeah, still one of the game's best, and maybe in a year or two time where he maybe loses a step and the separation isn't as absurd, frankly, as it is right now because of that, then then we're gonna probably talk Ja'Marr Chase, Justin Jefferson as candidates for that number 1 spot. But I got Justin Jefferson right now at 1. Obviously, I mean, he could play hero ball. I mean, that 4th and 18 catch against the Bills, I kind of had that in my mind. I was like, a guy making that type of play, I think I got to have him at 1. So he can be the hero for an offense. Obviously, a freak route runner, big play waiting to happen guy. It's the straight line speed. It's the hands. But, man, his ability to go 0 to 100 and then almost as impressive, maybe even more impressive, his ability to go 100 down to 0, his ability to throttle back is what makes DBs look dumb in that 10 to 20-yard range, and he just feasts in the intermediate parts of the field. And also really good after the catch. I mean, he's a wide receiver that you could ask him to do anything. Ideal size, again, plus athleticism. I mean, yeah, just kind of like running backs. It's a little bit of an oversaturated position. Just wide receivers are a little saved by the fact that you need 3 on the field at a time, or at least 2 on the field at a time for the most part. Even like a Tennessee offense is going to have 2 out there versus running backs, you're only going to have the 1. So they were kind of buoyed by that. But yeah, this top 5, honestly, you have a list that has these 5 guys, but in a completely different order. I can't blame you because I think there's a legit argument for any one of these 5 being number 1. But I got Justin Jefferson. Over to tight ends, I think it's a little bit more clear-cut, at least for this upcoming season. Travis Kelce, I mean, honestly, he's the number 1 wide receiver for Kansas City, so maybe he should have been on the last list too, right? But his true position is tight end, so we're not going to do that. But an animal after the catch, great work in the middle of the field, more than reliable hands, still a sharp route runner. I know he's into his 30s, but right now not showing any signs of slowing down. So maybe in a year or two's time, he'll have to hand over this tight end 1 title to someone else. But for right now, I don't see him relinquishing it. And again, I think it's at least 2 years before we start thinking about who is going to be the new tight end 1 across the league. He's kind of got that Aaron Donald hold on that number 1 spot for his respective position. Then I got George Kittle at 2. It's close between him and Andrews, but again, Kittle's run blocking is just absurd. And honestly, if he played in an offense that wasn't San Francisco, which, no one's going to say Kyle Shanahan's not great at what he does, right? I think he's probably the best play caller in the game. If he's not number 1, then he's somewhere in that top 3, top 5 conversation. But any given week, you'll have a random guy disappear. So that's why, Kittle 1 week will, 6 catches, 150 yards, 2 tuds, and then the next week it's like 2 catches, 35 yards. And it's like, what? You didn't want to take advantage of him more? But other than that, put him in any other offense where he is the number 1 focal point, put him in Kansas City and, have him trade places with Kelce. I think he put up similar numbers to Kelce and on top of the blocking ability, of course. So Yeah, still one of the game's best. And then I had Andrews coming in at number 3. He's kind of in the perfect offense for him, and he's kind of the perfect weapon for Lamar Jackson, at least to what, type of passer Lamar's been up to this point, specifically in the Greg Roman era when he was the OC in Baltimore. But yeah, has emerged as one of the game's best, and just such a reliable weapon. Feels like he makes a ridiculous circus spectacular catch week in and week out, so the hands are definitely there for the most part, at least when it comes to those highlight situations. Does have some weird drops, in a given week where it's like, what? You're too good to make that drop. But for the most part, hands are way more than reliable. And just may not have that insane athleticism, but knows how to box out defenders, just savvy in that regard to work the middle of the field, and been a big part of that Ravens offense. Dallas Goedert, another guy who's kind of emerged as one of the game's best, and also we start to hit a little bit of a drop-off. You get past that top 3, and it's like, okay, here we go. We start to hit the scarcity of what top-end tight ends there are in the league. But yeah, Goedert, plus blocker, but in a lot of ways, Devonta Smith, A.J. Brown, yeah, they're the number 1 and 2, and this team could probably use an upgrade at their number 3 wide receiver spot, but Dallas Goedert is so good that they kind of have the freedom to, hey, Quez Watkins is fine, Alomi Zaccheaus, cool, that's fine. We don't need anybody that's super special at that third wide receiver, because Goedert is that third pass catcher. And kind of like Andrews, awesome work in the middle of the field, probably a little bit more athleticism, I would say, in Goedert's game than Andrews. Only thing with him is, he's missed some time over the last couple of years, but if he's healthy, yeah, he's one of the best in the game. And then Darren Waller, he's the ultimate upside, but also could miss the entire season because of injuries type of guy. But he looks good so far in Giants camp, and he's kind of in the perfect offense for him, where Daniel Jones is going to target the middle of the field, and Waller's going to, kind of eat that up. And like Kelsey in Kansas City, Waller really is their number 1 target. He may not play wide receiver, but I would be surprised if he's healthy the entire season and he doesn't lead this team in targets. Either Jalen Hyatt stepped up in a big way, or someone I'm not thinking of is having a monster breakout season. But if Waller's healthy, athletic mismatch. You can even line him up out wide and really take advantage of his size against DBs. But yeah, we just got to see him on the field. But when he's healthy, there were conversations about, who's tight end 2 right behind Kelsey, Kittle or Waller, and I think if Waller stays on the field this year, we'll kind of get back to having those conversations. Then we get on to the offensive line. I still got Trent Williams, the best tackle in the game. He's just still absurd. I'm kind of waiting for him to hit that wall, but no signs of it coming anytime soon. Still the game's best run blocker, and he is a plus. Honestly, not even plus. He's just still an elite pass protector on top of that. And I got Andrew Thomas at 2, man. He has made huge strides from where he was as a rookie, and I think he's still only getting better. Great athlete, can get on block the second level in the run game, but he's just a stone wall in pass protection. And his mirroring ability, we kind of saw it coming out of college, and now it has really come to light at the NFL level, and I think he's one of the best pass protectors the NFL has to offer. Then I'll go Lane Johnson here at 3. Kind of tough to grade because, how many games is he going to miss in a year? And it sucks to say that, but odds are he's going to miss a little bit of time. But when he's healthy, he's the game's best right tackle, and it's pretty comfortable to say that. A freak athlete, easily can get to the second level, awesome in the run game. That's a lot of people would say he's the game's best run blocking right tackle, and I have no argument against that. Also, while being a stalwart there in pass protection too. So yeah, one of the game's best without a doubt. And on the other side of the offensive line, Jordan Mailata. Last year was maybe a little bit of a down year for Mailata, but his down year is still way above average tackle play, which many teams would covet. Many teams would take a down year for Mailata as a career year for their left tackle, including my Pittsburgh Steelers. So, just an insane story. 7th rounder, rugby player, but it's taken a liking to the game, and his athleticism from the rugby background has become evident. Again, mirroring ability's there, the footwork's there, hand placement has gotten better and better with time, and he is absurdly strong too. So if he gets his hands on you, you're kind of done for the play. And I got Tristan Wirfs at 5. Again, another guy, maybe a little bit of a down year last year, but Tampa Bay across the board, everyone kind of had a down year, right? So love his play strength, love him as a pass protector. Sure, maybe he leaves a little meat on the bone as a run blocker, but I think we'll kind of see that correct itself next year and then even beyond. So maybe didn't play. There might have been other tackles you could say last year played better than Wirfs and should have been on this list, but I think I don't want to say I'm just projecting this for 1 year, but I'm also not projecting this for the entire, the next decade, because, otherwise Trent Williams wouldn't be 1 and Lane Johnson probably wouldn't be 3, but trying to find a comfortable middle there, and I think that's where the Wirfs upside and what I think he's going to bounce back and look like, he deserves to be in that top 5 list. Random tangent aside, let's go move over to the guards. So I think Zach Martin's probably the best guard in the game, and that's why I got him at number 1. Awesome in run blocking, fantastic in pass protection, holding out, trying to get more money for a good reason. To me, he's still the best in the game. And then Quentin Nelson, another former Fighting Irishman. honestly, if you had this flipped, no arguments for me. Maybe Martin's a little bit better in pass protection. Nelson maybe a little bit better in run blocking, but I don't even know if you really can delineate a major difference in either one of those categories against these two guys. So yeah, 1 and 2, no doubt. Makes me proud to be a Notre Dame fan. Chris Lindstrom coming off a monster year and a perfect guy to fit into that Arthur Smith zone blocking scheme. Fantastic on the run. Also saw him take huge strides in pass protection last year. So now it feels like he's kind of hit his stride. And I think he's one of those guys that maybe Bitonio is still slightly better right now, but I think going into next year, we might see that flip where Lindstrom is becomes more consensus viewed as a better player than Bitonio. But Bitonio is still a stud, and that's why he's number 4. Just age, he's starting to, get to that point where we're starting to think about, when is the end, right? Is the end near? And maybe when can we anticipate a decline? But still, a huge reason why Cleveland's run game any given week, in a pass-happy league, the Browns can still win it on the ground, and Bitonio's a big reason why. Just a mauler there, still a plus-level pass protector, has plenty of strength. So until he loses a step, he's going to have to stay in this top 5 conversation. And then I went Michael Onwenu. Could have gone Joe Thuney. He's awesome in pass protection, but just not as good in run-blocking situations. But he does play in a pass-happy offense. So honorable mention to Joe Thuney, and there's plenty of other guys I could have mentioned there. But Michael Onwenu, man, balanced, solid, consistent. Maybe last year was a little bit stepped down when you look at the PFF grades, but also was playing for a guy that wasn't an offense coordinator in Matt Patricia. So, I think Bill O'Brien will get that sorted out. Everything's going to get back to normal, and you're going to see a guy using PFF's numbers that's 80-plus in run blocking, 85-plus in pass protection, or at least 80-plus in both those areas. Pats fans, knock on wood, hopefully stays healthy. But yeah, another young guy that just, to me, year 1 to year 2 saw that growth. Ignore last year because of Matt Patricia. I think he gets back on track, working in the right direction, and we'll see him fully emerge as one of the best guards in the game. Let me get over to the centers. Creed Humphrey, to me, probably the best in the game. Awesome in pass protection, mauler in the run game. You really couldn't ask for much more out of Creed Humphrey. He's also a massive human being, so just an absolute mover of people, a mauler in that regard. And luckily enough, it doesn't affect Patrick Mahomes when he gets deep drop situations. Jason Kelce, I'll have it too. Another guy where it's like, when's he going to hit that wall? When's he going to lose a step? But he's still such a good scheme fit, and he's so good in the run game and getting to that next level. And also just the other stuff we don't talk about with being a center, orchestrating the rest of the offensive line, calling out stuff at the line of scrimmage. He's so cerebral, and that's why, up until Creed Humphrey, year in and year out, most people would tell you, hey, Jason Kelce is probably the best center in football. And then when Marquise Pouncey was playing for the Steelers, it was one of those two that you were taking out of the state of Philadelphia. But Kelce's still one of the game's best. Frank Ragnow, I'm going to put just ahead of Corey Linsley. Linsley still had a really good year in pass protection, just was kind of randomly had an off year in run blocking, which was random. So Ragnow, coming off the injury, was still really, really solid, really, really balanced between his pass protection and run blocking. And I think another year removed from the injury 2 seasons ago, he'll be that much better. Linsley, again, it was just I think it's a random fluke, basically, that he just had an off year in run blocking. Sort that out, get that back on track, at least become average there, maintain what he does as a pass protector. He's one of the game's best, makes a lot of money for good reason. And then Tyler Linderbaum, man, this number 5 center, this was a tough way for me to end out making these graphics. So I was like, David Andrews, maybe, he's kind of my honorable mention here. He's pretty well balanced, while Linderbaum, man, he is fantastic on the run. We kind of knew that coming out of Iowa. He is very, very strong, but also as agile a center prospect I have scouted. He just really kind of struggled in pass protection, but a lot of that from what I can glean from him, the stuff that I went back and looked at was more so just being, I think, a little caught off guard by stunts and twists and just trying to track movement, screening across his face, basically, versus where I thought the concern might be where, he's sub 300 pounds, big nose tackle is going to get into his chest and just drive him back into the pocket. It wasn't really an issue for Linderbaum. So I think going into year 2, we'll kind of clean up his ability to read and react to stunts and twists, and then therefore we'll see that pass blocking grade go up. So had to put him here at 5, but this is kind of like worse where I love the player as a prospect, and I'm assuming that those issues maybe from last year will sort themselves out. But guys, that is going to do it for my offensive version of a 2-part series, top 5 players at each position. Again, today we talked offense. Later on this week, come back and check out my top 5 players at each defensive position. Love to have your thoughts down below in the comment section for today's video, as well as that video. Let me hear your top 5 lists for each of these position groups. There really is no right list. It comes down to how you see the game and what you would prioritize, right? Are you more somebody who would want a gap scheme if you had an NFL team? Would you run zone blocking? That'll affect your offensive line rankings. What's your ideal wide receiver look like? So again, all that kind of comes into adding a subjective flavor to everybody's list. So let me see yours down below in the comments section. Hit the like button if you enjoyed today's video. Seriously helps me and the channel out a ton. And subscribe if you do want to see more football content like this. But that is going to do it for me. Hope you all have a fantastic rest of your day. And until next time, my name is Teach, and I am signing off.